Hey, Jack. All right. You got this stuff?
Yeah, all cleaned and oiled.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's get it on.
Who are these guys?
It's my theme music. Every good hero should have some.
Hot damn, it's time to get down to the jam. It's time to get down, it's time to get down, it's time to get down to the jam. I said it's time to get down to the knowledge, gonna get on down with the know. On the morning coffee show, on morning coffee with Keith, here on Pop Culture Minefield.
Excuse me, can I get a cup of coffee? Black?
Can't you see we talking?
White?
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, now you put the pressure on the day. Now we have to have good morning. Damn, now I've got to.
Fine. I'll find another way of beginning the show then. Wow. Well, this is our final show.
What?
For the month of.
Oh.
Dude,
wow.
Martin again. I'm out of a job.
This is our final show for the month of June. We're wrapping up our 1970s look back. Hello, Anima. And hello, Andy Maro, and Snortopupus, and let's see who else. Hello, everybody. Hello to you, Ben and Martin.
Thank you. Hello, back to you.
Well, as I was saying, we're wrapping up everything when it comes to the 70s, and I wanted to take time out for this particular episode to basically do a little cleanup work. There are a few names. I've gone over all the episodes I've done, and it comes to mind that there are a few names, a few people that have not, in my opinion, that have not been properly discussed, but who have had great influence, and whose influence really is felt from the 1970s all the way to today. And so I decided to pick some names of people who aren't really talked about as much as they should be, and should be talked about a lot more, in my opinion, given their influence and what they've created and what it means to our fandom, even today. And I think, Ben, you can agree that this is an interesting list of names. So
It is, yeah. And and some of these, at least one of these was not even on my radar. Two of them actually, but yeah, it's the 70s were both a great time and a difficult time for nerddom, because it was just having its birth, its birth as it introducing itself into pop culture,
becoming more and more mainstream. And it is it is definitely something that I think, as time has gone on, has really proven to be a much deeper, richer history than a lot would have given its credit for. And again, starting with the 1970s, I wanted to make it, at least first of all, easier for myself to do the research, because I lived through this. You
Yeah.
know, it's even though I was born in the '60s, my main childhood memories are all of the '70s. But
Same,
because of syndication and a few other things, I have
Mhm.
knowledge of things dating back, up to like, almost a decade before I was born. And I've
Right.
always found that, especially in those years prior to the internet being available, that was always something that seemed to really amaze a lot of people that I would run into. The amount of knowledge I would have about certain TV shows that I probably shouldn't, or certain
Right.
movies, or certain bands and music and other things. And a lot of that just comes from just being a fan, really, of pop culture. I think
Mhm.
really a lot of us can say that. A lot of us who grew up like that really are, in a very unique way, connoisseurs of pop culture. And
Right.
because we've seen so much, we've absorbed so much, and so I think it's just a way of what I'm doing this summer is just a way of going over a lot of that and
Right.
getting the opportunity to shine a spotlight on those who I personally feel don't get the spotlight enough even today. And I think it's important for a lot of the younger members of our fandom to at least know who these people are or were and what influence has been, especially on what they are enjoying right
Right. Because these folks are, this time period is, like we pointed out, what developed, modern fandom.
Yes.
If we didn't have some of these people doing the things that they did, there would not be the fandom that we know. Hello, Snortopupus. I hope I'm saying your name right. Good morning.
Well, I'm glad to have you on the show when I do this because it's important to also prove to a lot of the younger viewers and listeners this isn't just stuff that I'm making up.
Right.
From the point of view of somebody else who also lived through it, you can back up a lot of what I'm saying, and even add a few things that I didn't even think about. So,
right. Well, and also, demographically, geographically, we came from very different places. Because you grew up in,
Northeast Ohio.
Northeast Ohio. It's like, is it Iowa or Ohio? These cities call it. For me, it's still early in the day. I grew up in deep South Texas, and and West Texas, where knowing the name of some people like Stan Lee, and and knowing having any idea what a which artist was doing this this run was extremely weird. I was supposed to be idolizing only Roger Staubach and nobody else.
What do you mean, America's team? Come on.
Right. So for those of you too young, in the '70s, the Dallas Cowboys were the big thing, at least in Texas, of course. And Roger Staubach was the quarterback for the Cowboys and was considered the role model for young boys in the '70s. It was like,
and much
Roger
the
Staubach.
same way Tom Brady is, but even more so because whereas Tom had a few things at the beginning of his career that kind of, went a little sideways with his relation with his first baby mama, and a lot of other things connected to that. You didn't have that with Roger Staubach. He was one of the golden boys of the NFL, poster boys of this is how you should be. This is what a superstar is. This is a leader among men. Quarterback.
Quarterback, good. Quarterback, good Christian. you know, and
also
all
a
that.
military man. He
Yeah.
served in the military. He's a military guy. So
And so this was supposed to be our, you know, because he was athletic, but he was, you know, humble as well, so that, you know,
mhm.
and stuff. And he was the, you know, that's what we were supposed to emulate, you know.
Well,
As,
and to really put a fine point on this, at least for you football nerds out there,
Mhm.
that's also what really made their rivalry with the Steelers so interesting.
Mhm.
Because you basically you have Roger Staubach on one side and
Mhm.
Terry Bradshaw on the other, and
Mhm.
Terry being a man of the South himself,
Mhm.
very outgoing personality,
Mhm.
always willing to laugh.
Mhm.
Okay, yes, I can laugh at that. I can because you know St. Louis Ram fan. So yeah. Anyway,
Right.
yeah, it's just a fantastic time period for sports.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Fantastic time period for everything, really, especially
Yeah.
the more creative aspects of the decade. I
Yeah.
still think we had it better than most
Mhm.
when you look at the preponderance of things that debuted in the 70s. Uh, the 60s were a nice
Yeah,
beginning.
you have a lot of stuff first coming out. And again, you know, we talked about the influence of George Lucas,
Mhm.
of Star Wars just creating fandom, which also, you know, kind of brings us. We'll be talking about one of the names on that list,
Yes.
you know, later on. But this was also the era of the fan. This was when, um, the fanzines were keeping Trek alive.
Mhm.
You know, um, and the you know the underground, you know, the underground movements were starting that live to this day, and that produced some of the people that now are influencing those. You know, this was when
Well,
the fan.
leftover influences from the 60s.
Mhm.
And a lot of people who may have started out protesting certain things just
Mhm.
turned around and started doing more creative things and using some of that same network of influence they had in
Mhm.
producing, you know, underground artwork, magazines, and even in certain cases fashion.
Right.
And then turning around and a decade later using
Mhm.
all of the contacts and stuff that they had made and all the things they had learned to be a little
Mhm.
more creative. You know, I mean,
Mhm. Yeah.
everybody was a fan. You know, it seemed like we were, and but you couldn't be out front about it. You couldn't be loud about it. You couldn't. It's not something that you could discuss. So a lot of those guys who, um, a lot of those really, a lot of the young people who grew up during that decade, you couldn't really
Mhm.
be out and proud about your fandom.
Mhm.
But the thing that was really kind of cool is you recognized how certain major artists and influencers, how they would communicate to you that they were fans as well.
Mhm.
You know, Stairway to Heaven being a
Mhm.
not Stairway to Heaven, I'm sorry, Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin having communicated in one of their songs and referencing Tolkien. You know,
Right. Yes. Sorry, this is bringing something to mind, and I think it's 70s. I'm going to check. Yeah.
but it's stuff like that where even major
Mhm.
stars who are getting
Mhm.
all the girls
Uh-huh.
and they get to drop stuff in their music or other ways to show that
Mhm.
they definitely are fans.
Right.
They are definitely one of us.
Right.
You know, we were everywhere. There was no way to stop us.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, because I was reminded that Leonard Nimoy did the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins.
Oh yeah. Nimoy had an album. Shatner had an album.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know what? we're going to table this part of our discussion because this is going to go with one of the names on our list to bring this stuff up. So
Yeah, absolutely.
let's go ahead first and let's see. I've already said hello to everybody. I'm sure we have a few more names that have shown up out there. And for those of you who are just following along and not messaging, welcome to the show. This is Morning Coffee with Keith with my good friends Martin and Ben, because, you know, it's such a big job. I need some help.
Well, we're from the 70s, so at this point we need help with a lot of things.
Well, yes.
I cannot confirm nor deny that.
Well,
things like walking.
I'm gonna take time out to at least do something I don't normally do a lot of, but I should do a lot more of. First of all, just I'm gonna take care of putting out a little bit of news here. Okay, so at the top, we're gonna start off with this news story from IndieWire. Samantha Bergson, the writer. Headline: Sarah Michelle Gellar wants to bring back everyone who has died on Buffy for the reboot. Okay. Sarah Michelle Gellar wants to bring back the dead for the new Buffy reboot series. Gellar, who reprises her role of Buffy Summers for the Hulu pilot, said during the filming at Italy Sardinia Festival that she is determined to have her fellow alums return, even if their characters already died on screen. Buffy the Vampire Slayer aired on the WB for 5 seasons from 1997 to 2001 before moving to UPM for 2 more seasons. That's the United Paramount Network. The series landed spin-off Angel from 1999 to 2004, yet the revival, which is still at the pilot stage, hasn't been greenlit to series just yet. Will be different in tone from the franchise predecessors. Well, partially because, if you haven't figured it out by now, Joss Whedon will not be an active participant in this. So you need to temper a little bit of some of your expectations as far as how the tone of the show will be, and wanting it to be a creative continuation in that respect. It'll be slightly different because you're dealing with a slightly different group of creators along with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
You took off wait on and you say slightly.
Well, there's 1 or 2 people that worked with Joss Whedon that were part of his essential team that are or have been referenced in previous stories, although I've not seen an official signing. There's at least 2 people that I can think of that were mentioned in stories that it looks like they may come back for this new show. So you don't have Joss Whedon himself, but you will have access to at least some of the people who helped him write some of those stories.
Okay,
So,
I don't want to be the harbinger of doom, but how did that work for Star Wars?
you know what? I'll balance that out and say one thing: Star Trek: The Next Generation, because this is basically how they did it. You know, with Roddenberry was pretty much, even though he quote unquote created the show, in reality he only did it because Paramount said that we have the rights anyway. We're going to do it anyway, with or without you. You can join us. And Roddenberry invited in some of his creatives that had helped on the original series. Now, ultimately, the people who ended up becoming very influential during the 7 seasons, I should say, the show was on the air, weren't initially a part of that group. Okay? So a lot of different things can happen creatively on any show. Even if you invite back the same writers, you're not in the same place in your life like you were back then, as has recently been displayed with what has gone down with the current and last season of Doctor Who under RTD. So,
Mhm. Well, and then of course I will see your Star Trek Next Generation and raise you Deep Space Nine.
True. Another show that started out with one group of creatives and ended kind of differently. Although, to be fair, one of the creators of the show did pass away.
Right.
We never got a full accounting of what that person would have done with the show.
Also true.
So,
And yeah. But the thing that I like about the Buffy reboot is that it is being rebooted by its star, you know, and but it's not, you know, all about me, you know, because they're bringing in a new Slayer, but it's, you know, so I get the you know, but bear in mind, Whedon also had a team of writers. He was, you know, he was a big influence on it, but there were other people who, you know, who worked through that. And I think that's going to be, you know, so I think I want to see good things from this. I have hopes for this. So, you know, and, you know, even if I'm disappointed, new Buffy is better than no Buffy.
well,
You know,
having lived through what is
Mhm.
now, in a nice way, called New Trek,
Mhm.
that's not always the case, in my opinion. I think it's better
Right.
to have quality in whatever you're
Mhm.
given.
Right.
And it's not something that New Trek, Kurtzman Trek has been able
Mhm.
to give people.
Mhm.
But I will agree. You know, I'm very interested to see what they can do. I may
Mhm.
not be the biggest fan of some of the creatives behind the scenes,
Mhm.
but you know what? I'm willing to give it a chance, which is always something that I'm always willing to do with all
Mhm.
kinds of creative endeavors. I'm willing to give it a chance.
Right.
My whole thing is just try to find a way of being good.
Mhm.
You don't necessarily have to do the same thing as they originally did with whatever project, but be
Right.
good. And I bring
Yeah.
up in this final example what Ronald D. Moore was
Mhm.
able to do when he was brought into and allowed to take over creatively what eventually became the Battlestar Galactica revival series.
Mhm.
You know, he basically took over and gave it a whole new way of doing things, not even remotely like the original series, and yet it was good.
Right.
And that's all I've ever said about any project. Just be good. Be
Yeah.
good. Make it something that people just really can get into. Don't
Yeah.
just provide something for the sake of providing it, because then you waste time, you know, like Star
Right.
Trek Discovery or Strange New Worlds or any of the Kurtzman Trek shows that he's
Mhm.
actually been a part of in any way, shape,
Right.
or form. All of it's got to go. And I say that again. All of it has to go. Hanging on to any part of that will not do anybody any good. So anyway, let me finish up by just saying it will be lighter than the last few seasons of the original, Geller said, as translated
Mhm.
by
Oh,
Vanity Fair.
that's not difficult
We
because those last two seasons were heavy.
Yeah.
It was, but it was heavy with a purpose. I think
Yeah.
the
Right.
reason why she's having to say it is because you're dealing with people creatively who have never written something like this before. That's
Mhm.
the other thing. That's where a lot of Kurtzman Trek really messed up, because when you hire people that aren't used to writing like this, well, of course you can't recreate what they originally had, because the people that you are really depending on do not have the experience to write at that level. You just
Mhm.
can't do it. You know, you might as well just try to change it in some way. So little thing for a lot of you out there: when they do bring back shows, that's the real reason why it doesn't have the same feel. And I've often said there is a trick to this, though.
Mhm.
If you want to be able to bring back a TV show and at least give it a kind of feel that is like what you had before, just take some of your old discarded scripts from the original run of the show and polish
Mhm.
those up and try those.
Mhm.
You know, do those as episodes, because that's what they did for The Next Generation. They took 2 scripts from the Star Trek, from the aborted Star Trek television sequel series that they had, Phase 2, and they
Mhm.
turned those into 2 episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I
Right.
think that's a way to go if you decide to bring back a show.
Mhm.
Let's see, Vanity Fair. Okay. It would be lighter than the last few seasons of the original, Geller said, as translated by Vanity Fair. We will try to find a balance between new and old characters.
Mhm.
My dream is to bring back everyone who has died, but space will have to be made for new stories as well. I see nothing
Right.
wrong with that.
And
These stories. Oh, go
Mhm.
ahead.
I would say, and I would love to see Tara back.
Yes.
Oh man, dude, that
Mhm.
hurts.
Yeah, that was the one that made me go, oh man, that was, because Whedon had a tendency to just, let's kill a character off just because we want people to understand and it's like, dude,
Yeah, he was the
you know,
king of it. I mean,
Yeah.
George R.R. Martin really, that's his career. But the
Mhm.
thing about Joss Whedon is he found a
Mhm.
creative way of doing it. He didn't just kill characters at a whim. He made
Mhm.
sure to kill that one character whose death you
Mhm.
did not see coming in such a
Right.
way that even people that weren't even the biggest fans of that character are going, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh man, you know,
Yeah.
I have to admit, Anya's dead hit me harder.
I don't know. Anya's death, because that it's one thing that if it's in the middle of a conflict. Tara was just
Yeah,
a random act, and I think that was she was
yeah.
not part of that conflict.
You're talking about the circumstance. I'm talking about the attachment to the character. I
Right.
really liked Anya,
Yeah.
and I was,
Well,
oh man.
I liked
Yeah.
all the characters. I
Yeah.
liked all the characters.
Oh
And
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and
But
I,
have
I,
you?
I mean, that's the power of this show.
Mhm.
Normally you go into a television series and everybody has their favorite character. And by the
Mhm.
end of Buffy, I just figured out that it's not one character or another character, it's all of them.
Mhm.
And that to me meant something.
Right.
Achieving that kind of balance
Mhm.
while also creating an entire universe,
Right.
what they like to call the Buffyverse.
Mhm.
That is amazing to be able to do all of that and have a spin-off series
Mhm.
and a very successful comic book series
Right.
to really be able to expand all of that.
Right.
I'm looking forward to it, but I'm
Right.
cautiously optimistic when it comes to the people leading the project. But
Mhm.
I have a lot of faith in those that are veterans of working on the show, who are
Mhm.
working with the newbies. And I hope,
Yeah.
unlike Star Trek, I hope that the veterans can actually lead these newbies in a particular direction to at
Right.
least get them back into the rhythm of things, but also help them to find something new to say. So
Right. Yeah.
I think the news stories will center around newcomer Ryan Kira Armstrong's character, described in the casting announcement as an introverted high school student who is a young slayer. Armstrong's co-leading character is also more Willow than Buffy, according to TV Line. The 15-year-old Armstrong also starred in the Disney Plus series Star Wars Skeleton Crew. So that's as much of this story as I'm going to read. But if you want more, I'll figure out a way of getting a link for you to be able to find it, or you can just go to IndieWire. Samantha Bergson, Bergeson, who wrote the story, and be able to check out that and the Vanity Fair portion, the story that they have a link to also in the story. So
yeah, I can actually drop the link to the story in the chat if it's allowed. If it'll let me.
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Paste. Ooh,
But that's the first. That's the first bit of news that I have today.
Mhm.
And now for the second bit of news. Let's see. And it is this. This is from, let's see, here we go. Witcher author promises new books. Unlike George R.R. Martin, when I say I'll write something, I will. Taking a shot.
Oh God! Shots fired. Oh, and that wasn't even a warning shot.
Let's see. Recently, the Witcher author Andrzej Sapkowski attended the Opel Book Festival and had a panel where he discussed various things, including writing more books, creative freedoms of adaptations, and more. Sapkowski released Crossroads of Ravens just last year in Poland, which comes internationally to 19 countries this September. Despite that, he's ready to write more Witcher books. Let's see.
I know several of my fandom friends will be happy to hear that.
Andrzej Sapkowski will write another book, so fans don't need to worry. Early in the discussion, before anyone even asked, Andrzej Sapkowski declared that he will write more and compares the situation to George R.R. Martin's The Winds of Winter. If anyone in the audience asks that kind of question, I'll tell you right now, I will write something else. Relax. No need to fear. And unlike George R.R. Martin, whom, by the way, I know personally, when I say I'll write something, I will. Sapkowski's further discussed that he understands why Martin isn't finishing his books. And also, listen, just between us, I totally understand him, because if someone had pulled a stunt like that on me, filming a series based on my books and then getting ahead of what I had intended to write, I'd also be wondering whether there's any point in writing anymore. If it's already been done, right? Makes no sense.
Mhm.
It's nice when they adapt your work. That's the author's bloody right. But to adapt what doesn't exist yet, to extrapolate that, that's just indecent. Now, let me take some time out. George is his boy. Okay,
Mhm.
but that is a quote statement. That statement is from his point of view. That's how he sees it. But reality is different than the way he's trying to make it seem like.
Mhm.
Part of the thing about George R.R. Martin, I will say this. When the final 2 seasons of Game of Thrones hit, everybody was against the producers of the show. Everybody.
Mhm.
Everybody was turning on those guys.
Mhm.
I was one of the few, and Gary will back this up. I was one of the few that said, look, I will admit, these last 2 seasons aren't the best. But I said, part of your blame is going to have to go to George R.R. Martin.
Mhm.
Okay? If he were someone that has never done television before, I would have been
Mhm.
more inclined to blame the 2 producers. But he's worked in TV before. He worked on a hit television series, a cult television series, for
Mhm.
one of the main network shows on broadcast TV, not even cable. So
Mhm.
he knows how this goes. And considering the leeway that HBO gave him, their contact with him, and all the stuff that he did, I said it before and I'll say it again. It's hard for me to feel bad for you when you've told 5 different stories
Mhm.
about what actually happened behind the scenes. I hate to be that guy, but to me, if something were true, the story wouldn't change. He's told 5 different versions of what he says is the reason why he stopped participating in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the other embarrassing thing. And I would just like to credit Nerdrotic, because he's such a big fan of these books himself, for saying it first before I figured it out. Martin did a lot of writing on other things.
No, I haven't done
Long before they even reached a point of going over some of the stuff that he hadn't finished yet. But here's the thing. As I said before, Martin, having worked in TV before, knew what was going on. It would have been different had he never written or had any experience with TV before.
Mm-hmm.
Having had experience with it, he should have known how long it took them to film everything and at what pace he was going to have to keep everything going in order to stay ahead of the show. Mm-hmm. He knew that going in.
Right.
But he still cashed the checks. And I find it rather convenient that as fans were blaming the producers, he decided to chime in and blame them too.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, the producers themselves, and a lot of people missed the interview with them. They admitted that they screwed up.
Yeah.
But their whole thing was adapting what he gave them. And he reached a particular point where he decided he wasn't going to engage in helping them anymore. That's what happened.
Right.
Now, over time, I think what happened was he got caught up in celebrating the success of the show so much that he started to fall behind in his ability to be able to write the books. That's the reason why he gave them the outline. He didn't have to give them the outline. He could have just said, look, you guys need to find a different way of slowing things up to give me time. He didn't do that. He gave them the outline based on where his mind was at that point as to what the future was going to be. Now you've got Mr. Sikowski trying to cover for him, saying, well, you know, these guys were going off book and they started making stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this, you know what? I'm just going to get into it. It's stuff like this that really makes it difficult to really be a fan sometimes, when you catch people saying and doing something that you know is not right. I don't know this guy, but he's a great author and he has an incredible fan base. I know I have several friends who are big fans of his. But as I said at the beginning, this is his version of it. This is how he interprets it. And, you know, Mr. Martin's a friend of his. Okay? I totally get why he's saying what he's saying. There was no reason to have said what he said, which means he's just covering for his friend. You know, after basically throwing him under the bus in the first half of the story. He was trying to find a way of making it up. It's like, you know, those two guys, they really messed you up and over. And I feel bad for you, dude. You're right. They're bad guys. Bad. Yeah. Look, said it before, I'll say it again. He found time to write a whole lot of other books and to help out with not one, but 2 other possible series spinoffs based on what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And he found no time to finish what he was doing. Even, and this is the other thing about having someone like Nerdrotic, who is a major fan.
Mm-hmm.
He was writing to his fans saying, oh, I'm working hard on it. I'm working hard on finishing. No, I got several chapters done.
Mm-hmm.
That looks bad.
Right, it does. And and his publisher, you know, has got to be upset with, you know, it's like, dude, we got a contract.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously he wasn't that mad at HBO.
Right.
Because all of those pilot things that he was doing was with HBO's consent.
Right.
So I find it kind of convenient that he's going to blame the 2 producers but HBO and I are cool. We're good.
Right.
It's like, okay. Look, I'm not saying these guys were completely blameless, but I and others have been saying as time goes on, the amount of blame you can throw on them shrinks, and the amount of blame that George R. R. Martin has to accept increases.
Right.
That's all I got to say. It's logic. Because if any of the stuff he was saying in the past was true, either he's hanging on to the final 2 books. There are some that believe he is, that he actually completed the work and he's just sitting on it.
Right.
Or he hasn't done jack squat.
Well, so
I lean to
here's
that second option.
well, here's the thing that as a series writer,
Yes.
I will say in George's defense, he has how many books out so far? In Game of Thrones?
Officially,
7.
as far as the actual story that he started out telling, or are we talking a lot of the spin-off books and side books and all that?
Just Game of Thrones, that series.
Wins and winners.
8. Okay. Hang on a second. Let me pull something up here.
I think there's a website that broke everything down, talking about what books he had out before the show came out. And he did put out a book while the show was in production, and still promised 2 more books. And next thing you know, show's over.
Right. So here's what, as someone who writes a series, one of the challenges is not just writing the book, but editing it. Because you're talking, the Song of Ice and Fire is how many books? God,
6 or 7.
6 or 7 books. Okay, and these are freaking bricks of books.
Yes, yes.
These are. Let's see here. So yeah, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out now, 2 planned, and you have got to get your details right. Every single detail. If you get a single thing wrong, you are absolutely boned.
Yes.
And when you're doing that with 5, massive books, Game of Thrones, the first one was 694 pages.
Yep.
God, I have no idea how many words that would have to be.
Well, also let me also throw this out there.
Wait.
Let me also add in something that to this discussion. The first book he wrote while he was working on the CBS series Beauty and the Beast. He came out with the first book in the 80s.
Right.
So he knew how much time this was going to take.
Right.
And again, as I keep saying, it's not like he's a newcomer to Hollywood. He has actually worked on a television series.
Right.
And to be fair, working on a network television series versus working on an HBO series, 2 different things.
Absolutely. Well, and
one of them allows you to be a little more blue, and the other one doesn't.
Yeah.
So you can write more, you can include more things that you have in the books that you write doing it with HBO than you ever could trying to do something with CBS. Okay, now you can go.
So these are almost 2 million words across 5 1.7 million words to sift through and edit for continuity, plot, and basically overall integrity. So that might be a big thing of it. But Martin, you had something to say.
Dude, there are 12 years in Hayat.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't care how much editing. I don't care if he doesn't have a map, a mind map of all the things that are happening on the character that he should have. I don't care if he have it or he doesn't have it. 12 years is inexcusable. I understand that you feel compelled to see the things from his point of view, since you're a writer, a prolific writer at that.
Mhm.
But man, in my opinion, this was the troll of the century, and this was planned. I convinced that he's because you know why he started the series, because he wanted to undo his from his point of view
Outdo.
his silliness.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Yes.
the silliness of Aragorn being a king. So he
Yes.
started with a with no, it's not bad intention. It's I don't have the word.
He had a chip on his shoulder when it came to Tolkien and the
Yes.
way that he wrote.
To
Mhm.
me, his goal, his real goal was performative art. I'm gonna wrap this that I'm gonna make everybody in the world be
Mhm.
wrapped around this, and I am not going to give them an end.
Right.
Because he have been playing for 12 years, playing, making video games, making tabletop games, making books, making whatever he wants to make. Except the freaking
Mhm.
book that has been, well, like I like how Roddick put it. Jon Snow has been bleeding in the snow for 12 years.
Yeah. The book, the last book that they were able to use for the show, the final book that he published had Jon Snow bleeding in the snow and had Arya just lost it. She's blind, wandering in the city. And that's where he stopped. So he had more than enough time to come up with something. And again, my whole thing is when I found out when he started writing these books, here's a little something to add to that. I agree that it takes time to write and edit and to make sure
Mhm.
you got all your details right. He also took time out to edit a whole new series of books.
Mhm.
On
And he's got
top of that,
novellas and stuff like that out there, even
yeah,
after that.
it's if this is that important, if somebody is giving you millions to adapt one of your books, wouldn't you want to make that the priority of your time for a little bit to at least make sure you try to finish it so that everything that they do will be what you wrote? Because it wasn't
Right.
like these guys came into it going, it's not like, it's not like what they're doing with what
Mhm.
Kathleen Kennedy is doing with Star Wars, or what it seems like Kevin Feige and a lot of his people are doing with the Marvel stuff. They're not acting like they're smarter than the people who originally invented all that stuff.
Mhm.
They were wanting to be as true as possible and stick as close as possible to what he had in the books. That's the
Mhm.
reason why all those seasons leading up to that point, everybody, even fans of the books, say they did a fantastic job in adapting. But
Mhm.
once they got to the point where he didn't provide them actual material, where he just had outline material where he wanted to go, you are then participating in what happens next in a very strange way. You are giving your blessing to what happens next. Because
Mhm.
as a writer, he could have gone to these guys and said, "Look, guys, I'm having some problems here. Why don't we slow it up here and maybe, write a few side things here to pad this out a little bit until I can finish the rest of it." He could have come up with all types of ways to work it out with HBO and the producers to try to slow it up.
Mhm.
And he didn't do that. He took his time to write other books within the universe to do a history, to write some side character. I mean, he's like all over the place. Oh, and as Nerd Rock likes to say, oh, and he bought a train, a real train. So he's had time to go to movie premieres, be celebrated at conventions. He found all this time to go and vacation and do all this other stuff when he knew he should have had his backside sitting at the desk in his cabin, away from everybody else, to write and finish these books. And he didn't do it. And again, as I said at the beginning of this, I'm not saying that the producers are blameless at all. Look, you guys, this is part of your job, is to take the blame like this. You guys led that production. Okay? A lot of fans didn't like those final 2 seasons. But I would say to George R. R. Martin, in my opinion, every year that passes, as we get further and further from the end of the show, Mr. Martin has to take more and more of that blame. He just has to, because he knew how hard this was going to be. You know, he could have very easily have just told fans, you know what? I can just go ahead and treat the final 2 to 3 seasons of the show as sort of like an alternate universe, and I'll give you a new version of where I would have taken it. Heck, you could even do that. You know, nothing. It's nothing. He's just doing his thing. So of course his boy's gonna like take a jab at him.
Yeah.
You know, I would totally expect somebody to do that to me if I had set myself up the same way that he has.
Right.
You know,
and, but the thing is that they're both in a similar situation, in that, you know, The Witcher has also been made into a series, and you know, it's pardon me, but he has still had, you know, Sapkowski has still been able to write new books. You know,
well, it's a vaguely similar. The biggest difference between Game of Thrones and The Witcher, Game of Thrones for HBO and The Witcher for Netflix, is this. The people running Netflix lost their ever-loving minds and hired a group of people who were not interested in adapting Sapkowski's books.
Yeah.
Okay, they decided that they were smarter than Sapkowski and decided to rewrite them and put more of an emphasis on different things. That's the reason why they lost their star.
Yep. And why?
When you have someone that is a fan, when you have someone that is a fan, especially if it's your lead actor, that means everything you do has to be like that. Now, Dan and Dave, if they were the ones behind The Witcher, I have every reason to believe they probably would have done a much better job bringing The Witcher to life, because they would have stuck to the books. The current showrunner and the writers for The Witcher on Netflix think that they are smarter than the author.
And which is a slap in the face to the fans, because the fans are following because of the author. I don't care if you're smarter. They could be fucking geniuses, but they don't have Sapkowski's voice.
That's right. But here's the thing. They don't care about you.
Yeah.
They really don't care about the fans. That's not the audience they're making this for. Now, I know, let that soak in for a while. That is all kinds of crazy. Wait a minute, who are you making this for if you're not making it for the fans? And thus, now, your headspace, as it is right now about this, that's exactly what people have been saying about Star Wars. That's exactly what they're saying about Marvel right now, as far as the Marvel films. If you're not making this for the fans, who are you making it for?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think they're set on getting new fans and forgetting what made the old fans, you know.
Yeah.
But but we're facing forward, and
Yes.
we were looking back, because there's several names on this list I want to discuss.
Yes, we are going to get right into this list. We're going to get down with the first name on this list, because this is someone who I have always admired, and someone who I think deserves a lot more. They deserve to be celebrated a lot more than they are. Okay. The first name on this list is Denny O'Neil.
Yeah.
Denny O'Neil is, in my opinion, one of the most talented writers in the history of comic books. He was someone who was so smart. His nickname was the Professor. And as I've stated before, he got started in the business. He actually started out by working for Marvel. He worked as an assistant to Stan Lee. And so he was able to learn all kinds of things from Stan Lee about the business and about how to make things work when it comes to the comic book industry. And he learned a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But eventually he made his way over to DC. And it was there that he was working and was not really seriously considered for projects. He was pretty much like an overglorified fill-in writer for several things. For the longest time, they just kept him on the bench. And eventually he got an offer. Okay. And what it was that they were going to cancel the ongoing Batman comic. And this is 1969. Sales of that comic were awful in 1969. And the television series basically was killing the comic book version of the character.
Yeah.
Because the people behind the television show were not really fans of the character. They were fans of a particular era of the character, which was the era of the character from the 1950s. So the stories, ideas that they were using on the television series were mainly taken in the spirit of and directly from stories from the previous decade, which was a different version of Batman than the one that you had in the 60s.
Right.
And so for those people who were Batman fans, especially big fans, majority of whom were big fans of what was going on in the 60s, the television show was an anathema to them. I mean, it was more about entertaining the non-comic book fans than it was for the people who were currently reading the comics.
Right.
And it was about to kill the comic book. And Denny O'Neil took over. He was able to bring in Neil Adams, and the two of them and their partnership pretty much not only revived Batman, but I think the work that they did starting in 1970 revolutionized that character in such a way that the version of Batman that a lot of us knew was really something that came from the mind of Denny O'Neil,
right?
And how he looked at things, and that's fantastic as a writer. I don't think. I look at it this way: what Christopher Nolan did with his Batman films I think a third of what he did was all based on what Denny O'Neil had created.
Right. Well,
In his movies.
and O'Neil was one of the team that made up like Ra's al Ghul.
Yes.
You know, and then Talia al Ghul, and
League of
he,
Shadows.
yeah, and he during that era he revitalized Two-Face, Joker, just all of those,
Yes.
and he like you were saying, he brought all of that back to its roots, back to Batman being this obsessive compulsive, vengeance seeking, he was not Superman. Well,
let me at least help with modify a little what you put out there. Denny O'Neil's version of Batman, as he said in an interview, his idea was to take the character of Batman and take him out a whole new way of doing things. So what that meant was trying to get rid of all of the trappings that the television show used. So
bat everything.
Basically get them out of Wayne Manor for one.
Right.
So what he did was he took Bruce Wayne and Alfred out of Wayne Manor. And that's where he created having the penthouse at the top of Wayne Tower with a brand new Batcave in located beneath Wayne Tower.
Right.
So that helped in Batman Forever. That also helped with, again, the Nolan Batman films. A lot of what he did was about doing stuff differently with the character, and then finding a way of combining Batman with the Roger Moore version of James Bond. So having more adventures where Batman got a chance to, because one of the characters that was used as an inspiration for Batman was Sherlock Holmes. And those that have actually read the books, Sherlock Holmes liked to use disguises. He liked to disguise himself
all the time.
And get out among, well, that's what they did with Batman. That's what they did with Bruce Wayne. He would disguise himself. He created several different personas to be able to gather information in the worst parts or various parts all over Gotham City. Matches Below being one of them.
Right. And this was something that Batman did that I, as a creative and as a gamer, loved, is that he didn't always have to beat people for information.
That's right. Denny O'Neil wasn't into that. He was into trying to just basically turn Batman into an adventure book. But he also found a way of, he didn't get into also the tragic duality. Batman was a man on a mission. Okay. He didn't have him boo-hooing or being dark for the sake of being dark. He treated Bruce Wayne wasn't a persona. Bruce Wayne was Batman.
Right.
And he had a mission to fight injustice. And eventually that mission would take him even beyond Gotham. He allowed him to go to other countries and fly and have adventures. And so he really played up the almost James Bond aspect of the character in the early 1970s. So Denny and Neil Adams, their version of the character is not something that a lot of other people who came after them really adhered to. They decided to make the character a little darker, and that's fine. There's different interpretations, but for the Neil Adams stories that he was writing, he didn't write as if Batman was this overall vengeance character, or that he was some sort of side personality that Bruce Wayne had created. He wrote as if Bruce Wayne was the one that made the vow to his parents. And so this is a mission that he took. So kind of like, he it's all encompassing.
Yeah.
It's not about, go ahead.
Well, and it's because this makes me mindful. When when you had Batman under the influence of Wonder Woman's lasso, and like, what's your real name? Clark Kent, Batman.
Yeah, that's more of a recent thing.
Yeah, I
Denny
know,
O'Neil
but
wouldn't have done that. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because he was.
O'Neil. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Well,
I was just gonna.
He was pointing out, O'Neil made it so that Bruce Wayne and Batman were the same person. That Bruce Wayne was not so much the mask.
Yeah. That's it. That's the one that you really got to put out there about O'Neil and Adams's version of the character. It was really just a guy who was trying to do the right thing and to save as many people as possible. And I really like that. I also am a big fan of what they were able to do with Green Arrow and Green Lantern.
Yes.
The hard traveling heroes and again, let me just officially say that I'm glad that John Stewart will be a focus of the DC universe, but I am just not happy with the fact that they decided to just make him the only one that can do anything and pretty much get rid of or push to the side all the other lanterns.
Right.
That's like creating a Star Wars television series and saying, well, Han Solo is going to do this mission over here, and Han Solo is going to do that. And it's like, well, what about Luke Skywalker and Leia? No. We're
Just
Han.
Han.
Show, but we're going to concentrate on Han because he's a favorite. It's like, but it's about all of them, not just about him.
Yeah. The trio is what is what makes Star Wars, in that era, Star Wars, and so because you also you cannot overstate the impact of Hal Jordan, or Kyle Rayner. Rayner is one hell of a character,
Yes. Rayner, Guy Gardner, John Stewart, Hal Jordan, those individuals, I think, are really the best. And unfortunately, it just seems like everybody wants to take shortcuts, not have to do the work, and not get into how all these individuals are different.
Right.
So,
because Gardner has an arc of his own, that is kind of redemptive to me,
Yeah.
So I mean, but we don't. But O'Neil, basically brought Batman back to life, and I like that he returned him to his detective roots, returned him to being a detective as opposed to a brute, as like Classic Comic points out, that beat info out of people, or having Oracle come along and just Google it. Batman is a detective. Bruce Wayne, he spent years, and evolving these, creating these things. The real question is not, can Batman beat Superman? It's, if someone killed Superman, could Batman find his killer?
Yeah.
Because that is who Batman originally was, as a detective.
Hi, Tom. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to.
Yeah, no. So and that I love what O'Neil did to bring Batman back to his, and while growing up, I loved watching the TV show. I was 8 at the time.
Yeah.
I loved what Batman became. Under O'Neil.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I haven't had a chance to say hello to several people who have jumped in during all this discussion we've had. First of all, let me just say hello, Real Popcorn Geek. Always good to have you. Mephisto, you rock. Tom Baker, yes, Tom Baker. Classic Comics, Let's see, and Read by Nature and Real Popcorn Geek. Wow. It's good to have everybody here. I love seeing everybody in the chat. Continue on. I didn't mean to short circuit any conversations. But oh, Tom Baker. Okay, that's fine. Keith Man of the Year 2025. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. He will humbly accept.
No. I am not the Man of the Year. I'm just a guy. But thank you, and on behalf of my agent, I thank you too. And that check is in the mail. Let's see. Gambit, yes. Let's see. Let's get to the next name on the list.
Yes.
You know what? I gotta say, in choosing this particular person, I look back on all the episodes that I've done up to now, and I'm really surprised I haven't really mentioned his name. I think I only may have mentioned it in passing last week. But that's the reason why I'm having to do this now, because it is very important that everyone, especially a lot of you younger fans, understand Michael Crichton deserves to be recognized. This is a guy who he was a Harvard-educated author, screenwriter, and filmmaker. Okay? He excelled in science fiction and techno thrillers and medical fiction. I still remember the trailer to his movie Coma with Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that was one of the first thrillers that he wrote, you know, just a medical thriller that, you know, did for hospitals in the medical industry what the book Jaws did for people who like to vacation around water.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. So, and bear in mind, Crichton had 2 working names.
Yeah.
His first, 3, 4, 5 books were as John Lang or Lange, Jeffrey Hudson, and it wasn't until the Andromeda Strain that he actually wrote under his own name.
I think he graduated from Harvard Medical School in 1969. Harvard University in 64. So, I mean, he was a smart guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, he started at Harvard, and then in the 80s released a book on BASIC.
Yeah. Wow.
Right?
This guy was just I can just read this and just go, you know what? I'm slacking. I'm slacking pretty much.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah. while he was at Harvard, is when he released Odds On, one of his first novels.
Yeah, that was the year I was born. Yeah. So his first novel he published in 1966, and had been releasing books pretty much almost yearly since then. In the early days, at least.
Yeah.
But the Andromeda Strain, 1969, that eventually became the film. And then, wow, The Great Train Robbery. See, I did not realize that his story, Eaters of the Dead, had actually been published in 1976. That's before I ever moved to the Midwest. You know.
Wow, yeah. And for those of you
that's the book that eventually became the movie, The 13th Warrior.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. And his book from 1980, Congo,
Yeah.
And Spear. Yeah.
Sphere
I
was
just think
oh,
that
mhm.
Timeline, Prey. I mean, there's still stuff on here that nobody's ever really adapted.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
And wow.
Yeah. And just
Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, Sphere was a mind trip of a book. You know, because you think you're dealing with one thing, and as you go on, you realize, oh no, we're dealing with quite another. You know. And Timeline. I remember. Yes, Timeline. I think it got adapted to.
Yes.
Timeline got
Into
adapted
a
to
movie.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was also
2003.
good.
That's yeah. Oh God.
And Jeffrey Hudson was the name of the other name he published under.
Yeah.
1968, he released a book as Jeffrey Hudson.
Right.
So he just wow. The man just geez, he was a machine.
He was.
He
I mean,
was a machine.
29 novels. You know, and there are several that were published after he died.
Mm-hmm.
Pirate Latitudes, Micro, Dragon Teeth, and Eruption. You know, and some of them had to be finished by other authors, but still. And, you know, like you were saying, Crichton started off, you know, with a medical career in mind, then turned, oh, hey, computers look cool. And then, you know, just, you know, it's like, let's just pick up, you know, he is like Tony Stark. It's like, oh, when did you become an expert on computers? Oh, last week. You know, I just, you know, he just like,
Wow. Well, here's the list of films.
mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
1971, The Andromeda Strain, directed by Robert Wise. Basically, Robert Wise, some of you should be very familiar with that name because he's the man that was picked to direct a film 8 years later called Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Wow. Then 1972, two of his books became movies. In 72, Paul Williams, Blake Edwards were the two directors of Dealing, or the Berkeley to Boston 40 Brick Lost Bag Blues, and The Carey Treatment. 1974 saw The Terminal Man. 1979, Michael Crichton directed The Great Train Robbery. Wait a minute now.
yeah, because he was also a writer on Westworld and Extreme Close Up.
Okay, so The Great Train Robbery. I knew I'd seen that before. It's a British heist film starring Sean Connery and Donald Sutherland and Leslie Ann Down. Let's see. Then Steven Spielberg came along and did Jurassic Park in 93.
Mm-hmm.
Then Sean Connery came back to the world of Michael Crichton for the adaptation of his book Rising Sun, which he did as a movie with opposite Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
Barry Levinson came in and did Disclosure, starring Michael Douglas. Let's see. Congo, directed by Frank Marshall.
Which one?
Congo, directed by Frank Marshall, which stars Laura Linney, Dylan Walsh, Ernie Hudson, Joe Don Baker, and Tim Curry.
Yeah, I was to say, if you left out Tim Curry, I was going to have to come over there and just verbally smack you around a little bit.
Oh, no. The Lost World, Jurassic Park, Steven Spielberg came back. Barry Levinson came back to the world of Michael Crichton with Sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And he did
Oh,
Disclosure. So
Right.
that's really pretty much the next movie he did. He just turned right around and did another Michael Crichton with Sphere. John
And then-
McTiernan
Mhm.
did his adaptation of The Eaters of the Dead, which was called The 13th Warrior.
Mhm.
Joe Johnston, who would go on to direct Captain America, The First Avenger, and The Rocketeer. Well, he had already done The Rocketeer.
Right.
Jurassic Park 3.
Right.
Timeline.
Mhm.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, and you left out one that's not based on one of his books, but Crichton wrote Twister. Was a writer on Twister.
Yes. Yes. Oh, wow. Richard Donner was the director of Timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Right.
Colin Trevorrow, J.A.
Mhm.
Boyona, Colin Trevorrow again. And now
Mhm.
coming up soon, Gareth Edwards.
Mhm.
These are all the Jurassic movies. Jurassic
Right.
World, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Jurassic World Dominion, Jurassic World Rebirth. Let me just say officially, because I was just saying this the other night when I noticed this had come on. Jurassic World is a movie, and I had some fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
But Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was ruined for me in the final 10 minutes of the film. Because I don't think Michael Crichton, it's based on characters that he had created. Michael Crichton never wrote that story. I don't think he would have written that character to do what she did in that movie. That little girl. I don't think he would have written her like that. Because it points to a major character flaw with that little girl who would eventually become a teenage girl for the next movie.
Right.
And having her let the dinosaurs loose. Because you notice what was her reaction after she did it.
Right.
You know, this is someone who is, in my opinion, not normal. She had no real reaction to the fact that she could be sending these animals out into the world to basically hurt and or kill dozens of people who have no idea these animals are out there.
Right.
And for the rest of that movie, she has no reaction to that at all. And that takes the story down a different way for me.
Right.
You know, you can't just let these dinosaurs go. You have to think about what is going to happen when you do that.
Right.
You know. So anyway, I've always had a problem with the end of that movie. It definitely shows a character that has some problems. So
Right.
anyway,
So one other thing that I want to mention about Crichton, I know, because the 70s is where he got his start. And his medical career pays off in a very popular show that came out in 1994 that ran for 15 seasons. ER.
Yes. His
created
association with Steven Spielberg really got into that and decided he was going to adapt that as a television series. And that's probably the biggest success on television of Steven Spielberg's producing career on TV. ER was a fun show. I was a big fan of Chicago Hope, the other show that it was opposite of.
Right.
But I like both shows. So
right. Well, and he another one of his novels made it as a film, but it was not. It wasn't a movie. It was a movie of the week, and that was Binary became Pursuit.
Oh,
Yes, he was the director on it. He was not credited as the writer, but that was one he wrote as John Lange. Yeah, Martin Sheen was in that one. So,
wow.
right.
Well, the thing, let me at least cross back into what you had said earlier about Westworld. It has to be understood that he did that as a script, not as a book. He created Westworld as a script and directed it. And so, and I'm talking the original 1973 film
with Yul Brynner.
Yes, and
oh God, you need that list.
Richard Benjamin,
James Brolin.
That's
James
right.
Brolin.
Josh's dad.
Yep.
That scene with James Brolin is burned in my memory. Well, seriously, I mean, it's the scene where the gunslinger kills James. I'm sorry. Spoilers. But it's the scene where you realize that the safeties are all off in the park. And wow. that's burned right in my memory. 1973. I'll let you guess how old I was then. But both Westworld and its sequel, Future World, those particular films did very well for themselves. I often argue that Westworld pretty much is the basis of where he got the idea for Jurassic Park, because it's basically the same story.
It is. It's the same, an amusement park that goes horribly, terribly wrong,
Yeah. And then he directed and wrote Looker. And then he directed the third film from the third film from actor Tom Selleck, and that was Runaway.
Wow, God, Runaway was is that the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah, that's Gene Simmons and Kirstie Alley and Tom Selleck.
Yes,
that's the one. That's the one. Cynthia Rhodes also. That's the one that has the programmable bullets.
Yes. Yes.
So when you shoot it, it's only going to go after the person that's programmed to kill.
Yeah.
Wow. And then let's see. He wrote the screenplay for Jurassic Park, and he also wrote the screenplay for Rising Sun. He wrote the screenplay for Twister, and was a producer on The 13th Warrior. And as we all know, what eventually happened during the production, he's also the uncredited director that finished the movie, because John McTiernan got fired from making the movie. And they, this is back when, instead of going in for reshoots, what they did was they did a heavy edit job on the movie. There's a portion of this movie, if I have to guess, I'd say 10 to 15 minutes of this film was cut out of the film at the beginning. That's the reason why you have all these when you have someone of the caliber of Omar Sharif in your movie, and you
Mhm.
reduce them to a cameo, even I sitting in the theater from watching the movie, and it's like, wait a minute, they would never have given him a cameo. Turns out I was right. He didn't have a cameo. He had an actual character in the movie. But when they were trying to fix the film, Disney decided, they were the ones behind the movie. They decided that the way to fix it was to just cut out the opening 10 to 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And then reduce it into like a flashback type of thing, so that you can actually start the movie. So there's a 10 to 15 minute beginning to the 13th Warrior that has never really been seen.
Mm.
And it's about the life of the main character and why he was sent there.
Right.
So they decided to film it to where they could just easily make up for it by just turning it into a line in the movie to explain why he's there, rather than showing what they had already filmed.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, Crichton's whole impact overall in the 70s, that was where he, became the guy he became, in terms of where we, what we see later on.
He deserves to be thought of way higher and more highly than what he is. We went through an entire decade where, Stephen King, and rightly so, was celebrated as the horror master.
Yeah.
Crichton deserved to be thought of in the same way for science fiction and thrillers.
Yeah.
He was the master. And nobody came close to what he was. I mean, look, Stephen King was big. He deserved that title. But even Stephen King wasn't going out there and being allowed to write and direct and adapt his own stuff.
Right. Well, and King is in, King is good at what he does. He is a single focus, single focus, master. Crichton is a polymath by comparison.
Yeah, he truly is. He's a Renaissance man. We would call him a Renaissance man because he could do so many different things.
Yeah, and not just write about them, he could do them.
Yes. Yes.
King can write about horror.
Yeah. Go ahead. King
could write about horror, but he could not, he can't do horror. You won't see King going, well, this is how you actually create a monster. This is the genetics involved. He'll write about somebody knowing the genetics, but Crichton knows his. I mean, that's why he wrote ER, because he could just go, yeah, this is what would happen in an ER. This is how that procedure would happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, he knew his shit, and yeah, he is producer, director, writer. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I want to do it. I'll learn how to do it. What is he good at? What does he want to be good at?
So again, there is he has earned his way onto this list of people. He deserves, whenever you talk about the 70s, he deserves to be remembered as a major talent whose influence is continuing on to today. I mean, they're getting ready to release a movie related to his work, another one, and I mean, come on,
Right?
It's important for a lot of people out there to realize. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that probably had no idea who he was prior to Jurassic Park coming out, or even one of the Jurassic sequels. You got to realize how much this guy has written, how much he was able to influence entertainment in my lifetime, starting in the 1970s. Really, I mean, I'm I'm talking a guy who has been influential in some form, either
Mhm.
television, film, or literature for the
Mhm.
last 59 years.
Mhm.
Next year, it'll be 60 years since this guy published his first book.
Right? Or wrote it, yeah. And I mean, and he wasn't infallible.
No,
I mean,
but
he poo-pooed the idea that video games would be big. Uh,
yeah. Which, had he figured that out, he would have been the one to write Ready Player One. Okay. So
right?
it
I mean, yeah,
and it
he
would have
did.
been a lot more bloodshed.
Right? I mean, he did do a graphic adventure game
Yes.
in 1984 called Amazon. And he should have gotten the clue then, because it was pretty successful.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
So yeah, it again, I want to first of all just say I want to apologize for not giving Michael Crichton more love for this
Mhm.
entire project for this month. He
Yeah.
deserves everything and
Right.
more. And again, 60 years. 60 years next year.
Right.
And and his stuff is still going strong.
Right. You see, in the 70s, though, in both our defense, in the 70s, we saw a lot of his movies, but we didn't see a lot,
Mhm.
but we didn't have the idea where he was going to go. We could see, oh, he writes blockbusters. This was like Jaws, and stuff. We weren't seeing the power that he became. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of why we missed some of Crichton in the 70s is because of the next name on the list.
Yes. I was about to go there. Let me just say this.
Uh-huh.
This next name is definitely someone whose influence is continually felt.
Mm-hmm.
He is someone who I think I can say in a very real way raised a lot of us
Mm-hmm.
as far as providing entertainment that we saw.
Right.
Producer, screenwriter, composer. This guy could do it all. And I have to say, for someone as talented as he was,
Mm-hmm.
what surprised me about his life story is that he didn't start out as a producer, screenwriter, composer. He started out as a member of a vocal group called the Four Preps. And he appeared in one of the Gidget films. And they had 3 gold records for Capitol Records. And
Which this man wrote or composed.
yeah. Which is the reason why I think he still gets royalties. His family gets royalties for a song that he wrote,
Right.
that he co-wrote, called "The Unknown Stuntman," which is the theme from the Fall Guy TV show.
Which should tell you exactly who we're talking about.
Yes, Mr. Glenn A. Larson.
Yeah.
His first pro credit, I think, was working for Quinn Martin. That is let me just soak that in for a moment. Quinn Martin. There's a certain generation of us that grew up seeing that name on a whole lot of TV shows.
In cursive,
and
yes.
There's a lot of people got their start working for Quinn Martin. But this person also, his first writing credit was on Quinn Martin's The Fugitive television series.
Mhm.
And then he signed a production deal with Universal Studios. And he created a Western called Alias Smith and Jones, which I remember watching as a kid. That was one of my first favorite shows. I mean, I love watching Alias Smith and Jones.
Right. And
It's
then Mhm.
well, I mean, it's a show that used elements. Okay, here's the thing about Glenn A. Larson. This is going to sound bad, but he actually made it work. Glenn A. Larson was the king of taking people's ideas and finding a less than costly way of advancing those ideas, telling stories that he wanted to tell.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the best way I can put that.
Mhm.
Alias Smith and Jones was really his attempt at adapting in a way and taking advantage of the success of George Roy Hill's film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
Okay. He what I didn't know is that he was originally involved in the development of the television series based on Martin Kanan's novel Cyborg for the $6 million
$6
Man.
million man. Yes. Was not.
And then
Yeah.
he was, he was one of its executive producers, but he didn't actively work on the show.
Right.
Okay. And then, of course, he later had that budget for $1 million an episode for his television series Battlestar Galactica.
Yes. Which, yeah. See, now the $6 million man was the first one I knew that it was Glenn A. Larson.
Yep.
But McCloud was going during that whole time. That was one of my parents' favorite shows.
Yep. And that's the show that is actually modeled after a Clint Eastwood movie, which had basically the same kind of premise. Okay, small town sheriff goes to the big city to track down a fugitive. And so, whereas with the movie, he goes back home, Larson decided to take the small town sheriff and put him in the big city.
Right.
And that became McCloud.
Yeah. And yeah, Larson, I mean, Larson did just for in the 70s. Quincy was another one of my another one of my favorites. Loved that one. You know, and Hardy Boys Nancy Drew Mysteries.
Yes, which somebody just loaded almost all the episodes onto YouTube.
Wow.
I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble, but for as long as they're able to keep them up there, for those of us, first of all, who remember that show, you know, Parker Stevenson and Sean Cassidy and Melissa Sue Martin.
Right, which that show launched Sean Cassidy's whole career.
Well, but to be fair, that was an ABC series, and ABC knew exactly what they were doing because it was an ABC series that premiered, I think, 2 years almost exactly after the Partridge Family had already been canceled on ABC.
Right.
They knew what they were doing. It's like, oh, another one of these Cassidy boys, of course.
Right.
But
but
I was trying to at least get to the fact that Harlan Ellison actually agrees with that criticism. He used to poke fun at Glenn A. Larson. So he referred to him as Glenn Larceny. The similarities between Larson's shows and cinema blockbusters, you know.
Well, yeah, because Larson, I think, had the same superpower as Stephanie Myers did, does is that he knew his audience.
Yes. Yes. Yep. He as we said before, $6 Million Man, Quincy, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, but also he was the co-creator of Magnum PI,
right?
And
a writer,
creator of Knight Rider.
Yeah. And the Fall Guy.
Yes.
Another one of my favorites of his wasn't in the 70s, but it was only like one season, but Automan.
Oh yeah. His take on Tron.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I mean, he was also, you know, he was also a, you know, what is it, a writer and producer for the new Galactica.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was ABC's attempt to make up for the fact that they realized, oh, this show's kind of popular,
right?
And they when you cancel something, you're automatically just sort of getting rid of everything. So in order to get everybody back, they figured out too late that it was going to cost them more money to bring everybody back than it would have just to create a spinoff series.
Right.
So,
and he also, something that, you know, he would novelize a lot of the episodes.
Yes. Yes.
He wrote the novel for, you know, so many of them. And wrote 4 original Battlestar Galactica novels.
Yep. Which was a concept. I mean, his Battlestar Galactica concept was rooted in his Mormon faith. So he used a lot of Mormon iconography and other things on for his show, Battlestar Galactica. I can't believe we skipped over this. He was also the guy behind BJ and the Bear, and its spinoff, Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo.
Right? So yeah, and BJ and the Bear was definitely him knowing his audience.
It's Smokey and the Bear, but
Smokey and the Bandit with a Smokey and the Bandit with a monkey.
Smokey and the Bandit with a monkey. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, the part of Jerry Reed is now played by Bear.
Yes.
But he also wrote the theme song to BJ and the Bear. But yeah,
to be loved by anyone. That's not it. Wait, where am I? I was in with Anima, and then suddenly I'm in here. You guys aren't even anywhere near as pretty as her. I don't know what.
You got that right.
But we're both prettier than Gary.
I'm sorry I interrupted. I just felt like fucking around. I'm in a fucking around mood.
We're going over our list of people that definitely deserve to be remembered for the effect that they had on the 1970s. We're getting ready to access the next name on the list, which is Gygax and Arneson. So, wow. Those two together.
Yeah. Those
when
two
you
together.
Think of the amount of money. Oh, go ahead, Ben. Go ahead. You were saying.
Oh yeah, those two together planted the seed of something that would eventually fill Wembley Stadium.
I get it. Hey, I just popped in to mention something from Anima. She's like, well, Kit needs to be there this weekend. We're going to be doing Small Soldiers, and we'll be doing...
I will try. I will try
We'll
if
be
I'm
doing
not.
Batman Begins on Saturday. So
I will try
he,
if
he
I'm
needs
if
to
I'm not
be
held
there.
up at
He
the
needs to
airport.
stop. He needs to stop babysitting. Yeah.
Well, I'm turning in one child for 3. I'm trading.
Okay.
So
Well, I hope
Today
you
the
can make
part of
it.
Gary will be played by Hans.
She hates it. She says, "Stop doing my voice. You make me sound retarded."
uh,
But anyway, we're doing
That's-
Batman Begins on Saturday, but Friday we're going to be doing Small Soldiers
Small
by Joe Dante.
soldiers.
awesome.
So,
That was a fun movie.
oh yes, it is. So I'm gonna fuck off back to hanging out with my woman. So anyway, you guys go have a blast, and I just wanted to bug you and pull your ear. Yeah, see. I told you she said that.
I know. I believe you. I miss you too, Anima. You're so good to me, and I just love hanging out with you. So you're the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the best for
All
putting
right.
up with Gary. And Gary
Yes.
nods in agreement.
Mhm. I will not
That
argue
woman
with
can put up with a lot.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna fuck off, guys. I'll see y'all later.
I could see Gary.
Bye.
Good to you too, buddy. Bye.
Bye. But yeah, okay, so yeah. Gygax and Arneson, the creators of Dungeons and Dragons.
Ah, yes.
Yes. God. And when you think of where the origins of that, because Dungeons and Dragons was originally chainmail, which was originally a war game.
Mm-hmm.
So D&D originally comes from games where a bunch of guys would put a bunch of little armies, basically they were playing army men with better rules.
Oh, I could have thought. Oh, I should have thought of that. I should have thought of that.
I mean, and this was also this is also where Warhammer 40K comes from, which is army men with very expensive army men with very very well written rules.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it really is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But
Yeah.
make no
I
make
get the
no
distinct
mistake.
feeling I was playing army men wrong. Jeez.
Right? Yeah. It's like I was playing with my action figures all wrong. I had Boba Fett come over to the side of the rebellion, so he was too cool to work for the Empire. So the rebellion paid better. But
Credits downtown.
right? This is where role-playing games got their start. This is what would eventually, after decades, become Critical Role, Dimension 20. I mean, there are entire channels devoted to gameplay. Abria Iyengar and Eric Ishii, Brennan Lee Mulligan, Matt Mercer, and and the whole Critical Role team. All of them owe entire careers now back to a couple of a few dudes going, hey,
Roll
yes,
for
classic
initiative.
comics, yes, Dyson, yeah, there are a lot of books, and make no mistake, Gygax had many flaws, but his influence in creating D&D, which created multiple worlds, and my first introduction to D&D came from an issue of Dynamite magazine in 1981. And having read Lord of the Rings, and in 81, I had read The Hobbit and read The Lord of the Rings the first time, that year, checking it out from my junior high school library. And learning about D&D, my first D&D box set did not even have the dice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember when I bought my first box set, they had to have the wax crayon in there so that you could fill in the numbers on the dice.
Oh my yeah. So I brought a box game to Nowhere's from an old friend. I was had to basically make room for some of his stuff, and the box set had the crayon in it.
Wow.
And yeah, oh my god, you just seen their face and they're looking at it going, yeah, those.
Well, those that know, understand, and are over the age of 40. definitely over the age of 50.
Right? Oh.
But wow.
Mm-hmm.
What was your? I remember the first time I played the snacks that we brought. Let's see, my snack was Doritos. I think a lot of people had Doritos. But yeah,
Doritos, yeah.
Doritos.
Oh my god. So my first games were actually played on my across the street neighbor's front porch. But the person who surprised me the most, my first true game with snacks, was my grandmother on my dad's side, Mama Reader, was her chocolate chip cookies and milk, because I taught my grandmother to play, and she took me to school on what role playing was like.
Wow.
And yeah, I was just like, this is so cool, Mama, you got this. And she figured it. She was like, but yeah, usually my when we were playing in junior high, where I had my very first character was Thoreau Flambard, who was an elf, his aspiration was, originally he was a paladin, and then AD&D came out, and I discovered Bard in the back of the book, and I wanted to do that.
Wow.
So you never forget.
No, you don't.
But Doritos and Coca-Cola were my first snacks at games.
Yep, that was mine. I knew I liked you for some reason.
And so yeah, I mean, that was, God, that's the one that has had the most single impact on me. Because role-playing games are what let my imagination loose. Role-playing games are what have created some of my best characters. The Demon's Apprentice character, my main character in The Demon's Apprentice, came from a Marvel game. I adapted it to a Buffy the Vampire Slayer game. And so, yeah, RPGs also, I think, gave a lot of Classic Comics, you got me beat by 3 years, brother or sister. So yeah, you got 78. Mine was 81. Again, very sheltered. I had to use some of my back to school clothing budget to buy that first box set.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just wow. Oh,
right?
The memories came flooding back, and it was just
right. Oh god, yeah. See, I bought my first box set at the mall, Sunrise Mall, the same place where they shot The Legend of Billie Jean.
Wow.
Tom Baker, you disappoint me, man. But bought them all at was it BK Books? Okay, all right, I can forgive you that. Monopoly was its own role playing game, but
Well,
Yeah.
he went full hardcore,
right, right,
putting friendship and family at risk.
right. Oh, well, see, that was also there was a game out in the 80s called Diplomacy. And and it was I was working at a Boy Scout summer camp down near Harlingen called Camp Perry, and there was a game with the staff, a diplomacy game. So in diplomacy, the trick was there were no dice. Whoever had the biggest forces won, but you could make treaties and agreements and things like that. So our turns happened after every mealtime. So between meal times, people would be going around making alliances and agreements and things like that, stabbing each other in the back. It was, and then you'd have to write your orders out and then hand them to someone else. They would have to say them out loud and then put them out there, and it was just insane. But D&D became the first cooperative game that I played, and I think it was a big one of the things that D&D did for me. One, it was cooperative. I wasn't always the most I must beat the other guy. Wasn't always the most competitive just to win, but it gave me a method, by a way to be social without small talk. It gave me a way to be a geek and be social at the same time without having to make awkward small talk, because I just was not. I've never been good at it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I could put on this mask of being someone else, and basically kind of, it's something I talk about, in my talks, about basically making a character Muppet. It is a secondary person who can do things for us, and I think that's part of what it does for a lot of us who are not socially, who don't do small talk. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is not able to just talk about trivial things, because our brains tend to focus on things that are important to us as opposed to just talk about trivial stuff. We don't do that well.
Yeah.
It is a skill that some of us, especially some of us who might be on the edges of neurodiversity. So I cannot overstate the power that of AD&D, of Dungeons and Dragons, and the genesis of role-playing games that came after that.
Oh.
Right?
I'm just stunned. I mean, look, for anybody that grew up in the 70s, D&D was just it. That's all I can say. That is my official way of putting it out there. D&D was just it. And this takes us to our final name. I have to say that this particular person is he pretty every geek and nerd that that lived through the 1970s in some way knows this person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they've been affected by this person, and to actually make an entire career, because I think they'll be celebrating 55 years this October. Mr. Barry Hansen, who became a DJ and got into just playing really a type of music, a genre that wasn't really popular, but his he loved it so much and was so good at it that he's pretty much made it a career over 55 years and helped to launch the careers of many people. And really, more so than that, he helped to take certain people and change the course of their careers. There were many people who are already famous who he gave a platform to, who were trying something out different with their lives. And he gave them a platform to try something different. His real name is Barry Hansen, but you may know his other name, which is Dr. Demento. Now, there's two reasons why he's on this list. One, because again, he was just that effective. But two, he just announced his retirement.
Yeah, just announced his retirement. Man's 84 years old.
Yeah. He's retired from recording his whole show. He just had his last show. For those of you who lost track of him, you could have tracked him down on YouTube. That's where he's been. He's had his own YouTube channel where he's been doing his whole show. But yes, he's just announced his retirement. They are still putting together a big celebration of him and his career this October. But I will say this. I learned a lot from listening to Dr. Demento's shows.
Yeah.
I got introduced to a lot of personalities and people that I never would have ever had the opportunity to listen to, like the Frantics. Boot to the Head.
Boot to the Head. God. Oh, God. Still to this day, one of my favorites, comedy sketches.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, because we're going to do a lot of laughing, but if you don't know what we're talking about, you can still find Boot to the Head on YouTube. I'm sure somebody's uploaded that entire thing.
Oh, yeah.
But one of my favorite shows is Paul Chato. And I got to say that I love Paul Chato. I love his entire channel. My brother and I became aware of the Frantics because of Dr. Demento, and Paul Chato was a member of the Frantics. He helped to perform in that famous sketch, Boot to the Head, or Kung Fu Leap.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he had, he is the source of Weird Al.
Yeah, he gave the world Weird Al.
Yeah.
That's really what he's known for.
Oh, absolutely. And but he had Judy Tenuta, Emo Phillips, on later shows. And his just, and again, these were people who gave geeks, who gave people who wanted something new, something different, not only a voice, in the artists that he put on the show and he played, but also his audience, in giving them a place to go, yes, this is hilarious. This is me. This is, this resonates with me.
Read.
Okay, I missed something here.
Read by nature.
Yeah. Oh, oh, you poor man. You need to find some of Demento's shows. It will enrich your life, I think.
Yes. There's a lot of comedy that was recorded, and a lot of people would do comedy by way of music, but it wasn't easy to get radio stations to play that stuff. Dr. Demento was really the place where you would go if you wanted to listen to some funny stuff musically or otherwise. Whether you're talking the Curly Shuffle or the Rapping Wayne or Rapping Duke, or if you wanted to talk Star Trekking, that's another good one. Or
I just looked that up earlier. Yeah.
Or even something like Shaving Cream, which I will say this. As a nerd dad, I taught my kids that song. I taught my kids the song "Shaving Cream." So, and I am glad I did it. I'd do it again.
Right.
But no real popcorn. He's still alive. He's still alive. Like I said, like we both have been saying. He just, just announced his retirement.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, and unless you were Ray Stevens, funny songs didn't really get much play. Now, Ray Stevens,
before or after? Before, definitely, and after. I mean, Ray Stevens is one of the few that broke through and had a nice career. Because of Dr. Demento, I learned that they were actually called novelty songs. Novelty songs were popularized starting in the 1930s, 1940s. Yeah. And so there had always been novelty songs.
Right.
But nobody really got into like having an entire show dedicated to playing those songs or playing songs that had a novelty sort of bend to it. So you could even get regular artists on that show. I was just saying to Martin yesterday that it's because of Dr. Demento that I learned certain things that I never knew, certain songs that had been put out there. Like, you know how in the 70s it became a thing where a television series would release the theme of their TV show as a 45. What I didn't know was in the years prior to that, people had actually recorded theme songs to certain TV series with the actual lyrics to that show. It is because of Dr. Demento that I learned that Lauren Green had recorded the theme to Bonanza, which has lyrics.
Right.
And I also got a chance to hear the Andy Griffith theme sung by Andy Griffith. The song has lyrics. I did not know that.
Yeah.
And other novelty songs. I think the very first time I actually knew that Bewitched had a theme song and had lyrics. Dr. Demento.
Right.
But Ray Stevens was definitely the big star. But Weird Al was really the star that Dr. Demento helped to launch.
Absolutely. Dr. Demento just, kicked his career, and it helps that Weird Al is so, is so delightfully charismatically weird to begin with.
He's one of us.
Yeah, he is one of us.
He is one of us. When you record a song in your dorm bathroom in college,
yes,
where you
My Bologna,
not just My Bologna, he did two songs. One was My Bologna, but another one, the other was Another One Rides the Bus.
Another One Rides the Bus. Okay, yeah.
You got a college kid taking his accordion into the bathroom to record a song, and from that has had a career spanning since the 1970s.
And bear in mind, this was like he would have had to record it on like cassette tape recorders.
Yep.
And then mailed it in.
Yep.
I remember in the 90s when I DJ'd the oh god, I had it in my head, and I just got it. The Midnight Snack for KSMU. a guy came up to me on campus because he knew me, and then he heard me on Midnight Snack and handed me a demo tape. and you know, I was just like, you know, but yeah, this was in 91. So
Wow.
you know, yeah, I mean, it wasn't that far removed from that era. You know, we were just getting, you know, longer playing you know, magnetic tapes. But yeah, that's how that happened. You didn't just send someone an email. You had to put it in an envelope and send it, you know, via mail with stamps, with postage, you know, and it would take
No money
you know,
inside. That was slightly illegal.
no money inside. Yeah, checks
Yeah,
were
yeah,
okay.
couldn't do
but
that.
no actual- right?
No. You still couldn't even do that. Couldn't do that. You couldn't give money. You couldn't give cocaine. We had already had a
Right.
whole decade of a legal case about that, and we're coming out the other side of that by the 90s. So couldn't do that.
Right. But yeah, I mean, you were the technology they had was so limited, you know, and still, you know, they managed to create so much, you know.
Yeah. Well, you have like actor Bill Mooney.
Mhm.
I didn't realize he was a musician until I listened to Dr. Demento, and I
Oh,
found out
yeah.
that he was one half of the duo called Barnes and Barnes.
Huh. And yeah.
Fish heads,
And-
fish heads.
and-
Rolling. Anyway,
Right?
and Napoleon
So,
the 15th. They're coming to take me away. Haha. And
right. Well, and then the masochism tango, something you just did not, you know, something you did not really openly discuss in the, you know, in this, you know, is
well, being a fan of Dr. Demento back then, you treated it like a nightclub in a way, you know.
yeah.
If you really wanted to talk about it with friends, it had to be in very hushed tones, you know, because not everybody got it. And at least living here where I am now, I was only able to receive, because it used to be an over-the-air, you know, back then there wasn't any internet.
Mhm.
You had to find a radio station that was willing to play the show.
Right.
And when we had really, really, really bad weather, usually just after a major storm, some of us can at least testify that you were able to pick up radio signals from places far, far away. And one night I happened to just catch one of his shows after a few years removed. I had my first discovery really of Dr. Demento was on a family trip back in 1980.
Yeah.
On the East Coast. We were traveling down to Georgia after visiting relatives in Ohio, and it was late one night driving, and the radio happened to hit something, and I asked my mom to tune it in a little bit, and it was Dr. Demento, and that's where I discovered the song Rag Mom. And I think that episode, was the episode that Demento had world premiered a brand new song from Weird Al Yankovic called Yoda.
Yeah. So what I had discovered about radio was that not just after storms, but at night, shortwave FM, you know, would skip.
Yeah.
And I picked up a Dr. Demento show from California one evening while I was fiddling around with my with the shortwave radio out in our garage while I was working out. and it was the only night I could get it, and it was, you know, just like, oh my god. So yeah, some guy was basically playing you know, basically rebroadcasting Dr. Demento in the background. It just you know, it was just like, wow. I never could find it again, but that was what introduced me to Dr. Demento, you know. And yes, Gambit, he did do Weird Al did do music video parodies, but first
it was
and
music.
foremost,
It was just easy.
was music.
Yeah, it was just music, and it was the
Right.
Dr. Demento show. That was the only way. I mean, we're talking 1970s here. Music videos. I mean, when I discovered Dr. Demento and Weird Al, you still had another year to go before MTV would even become a reality. Because MTV, remember, it's a product of the 80s, but MTV actually didn't start until 1981.
Yeah. MTV, August 1, 1981, man. And I actually watched the first video.
Get out of here, really? Oh,
yes.
well, actually, I've seen the first video. I wasn't watching the premiere because I was under the understanding that when they premiered, they didn't have very many stations hooked into what they were doing. So it didn't seem like very many people were watching when they premiered. But over time, MTV increased its reach and got out there. We're talking about Dr. Demento.
Right. Yeah, no, MTV is like in the 80s when, oh man. Yeah, no, I was up way past my bedtime.
Well, you know, that's the reason why NBC created Friday Night Videos for those people that didn't want to pay for MTV. Remember, it's cable. You still had to pay for it.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to see a lot of these videos that your friends were talking about, you had to wait until Friday night on NBC to watch Friday Night Videos.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, whatever was on at the time was all you got. You know, and that was, oh man. But jeez.
I know, lots of memories. Well, look, we'll be able to get into all this music video stuff next month because that's a part of the 80s. Okay. Right now we're still doing the 70s, kids. Don't get ahead of us.
Yeah. But no, yeah. Dr. Demento, you know, also we had this weird sort of shorthand. You know, kind of like how and I can't believe it, but my mom actually finally figured out what I was doing back in the day. And she never really realized what a geek I was. But in later years, my mom and I had this conversation when she was up in Oklahoma. When she retroactively realized what a nerd I was. And this was her apologizing for not encouraging this. Because you could quote a lyric of something you heard on Dr. Demento. And if someone else knew it, they would recognize it, but so that's how you could talk about Dr. Demento without talking about Dr. Demento. And she said,
that's right.
It was like early Christians with the ichthus. So one would draw one half of it, the other person would draw the other half of it. You know, and so you could say, "Oh, they're coming to take me away," and if the other nerd in the room said, "Ha ha," you know, it was call and response. You know,
Yes. Well, I mean, it was a phenomenon unto itself. Nobody did it quite like Dr. Demento. As far as I'm concerned, nobody will be able to do it like Dr. Demento. One of a kind, and I'm so glad that I found him and truly just tapped right into my nerddom because of him. It gave me a deeper appreciation, really, of nerd culture, pop culture, really. And because it wasn't just stuff related to just being a geek. He just liked playing music that a lot of radio stations just weren't really hip to, or for whatever reason decided not to play. and he would make that a priority of giving it life. You know,
Yeah.
whether it's, I mean, I listened to William Shatner and I listened to songs from both William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy on the Dr. Demento show. So I got to hear
Right.
certain tracks from some of their albums.
Like the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins.
Or MacArthur Park, as sung by
Mhm.
William Shatner.
Mhm.
But I just, yeah, it's, you got to understand the effect that Dr. Demento had on
Mhm.
any nerd you know
Mhm.
that's at least 50 years old or older.
Yeah. Dr.
You know?
Demento was the critical role of the 70s.
Yeah.
He brought us together. He gave us that shorthand. He gave us that call and response with his show, because he would put the stuff out there that we liked, and then we could find each other.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was just important. You know, it's one of those, if you go back in time type of things, the effect that Dr. Demento had on the culture, our culture, to me is priceless. You cannot really have what we have now without Dr. Demento. You know, and especially, you know, again, no Dr. Demento, no Weird Al.
Yeah,
that's pretty much just it. Because Dr. Demento was the one that gave Weird Al the money to record his first album, first independent release, that eventually led him to getting an actual real recording contract that would allow him to actually record all of his songs professionally.
Right.
And start
not
his
in the
career.
bathroom.
Yeah, not in the bathroom.
Right.
Somebody better tell Sean Connery, because you know he still did good work in there. Little Highlander joke, but anyway, Doc, you know, his real name's Barry Hansen. I think his wife is still alive. I just want to say thank you to him and his wife for all the years of enjoyment they gave me and everyone else, because again, we would not have a lot of this. Really, this would all be so different. And I hope with this first grouping of shows that I've done, I've been able to introduce a lot of you to some of the people that made the 70s what it was. The people, you know, people who don't normally get recognized, whether you're talking, you know, whether you're talking Forrest J. Ackerman or Dr. Demento or Denny O'Neil or Michael Crichton, you know, there are people that really just did some amazing things.
Yeah.
And they should be recognized for it.
Yeah. And Demento, here's the thing about Demento. He originally he was a fan of railroad songs.
Yes.
You know, and his personal collection is 85,000 records.
Wow.
Including almost every record that listeners submitted to him. He tried to listen to every one of them and personally selecting each week's music. I mean, that is
dedication.
That's a passion for what he did. And I think that's the thing that makes fans, you know, because when you look at fan, it's a shortening of fanatic. You know, and we find these things that we love and we latch onto them because they resonate with us. And that's what I think makes every fan, you know, special. It's why we can have artwork that is not solely sponsored by rich people anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. He definitely helped to create the modern fan and laid the groundwork for where we are right now. And just really helped to bring us together as a community.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You could tell with what he did, he loved it. He loved what he did.
Oh yeah.
Still does.
Yeah. Right. And you know, the other thing is that you know, another influence on his, and somebody we haven't really talked about, is Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I mean,
Breaking the mother's attention.
yeah, oh God, so many great artists from that era that, you know, you would have to do a single show and rush your work to get to get in all of the, if you were, you know, and focus one show on each thing, music, you know, radio, film, TV, to just to get all the things that really went in the 70s to create what we got in the 80s, 90s, you know, and now the 2000s. That's another, you know, another 3 decades now. So, you know,
Yes. Well, listen, again, that's what I really tried to do with all of this. And I hope for those of you out there that have been watching, listening, I hope that you, again, as always, have learned something. You got something useful out of this episode, and it causes you to want to do a deep dive on your own. Go down that proverbial rabbit hole and just discover something new. For this week, I would really like you to focus on Dr. Demento, because he has played types of music. Trust me, if you find a song and you don't like it, go to the next one, because he's released a compilation of a lot of stuff. And the thing about Dr. Demento is he went out and released whole compilations of music that he's played on his show.
Yeah.
But a lot of these people have also got their own channels on YouTube. There are a lot of fans. Just if you can dig up a show of his and listen to it, preferably the earlier the better, because you're going to get a lot more weird stuff that way.
Yeah. Yeah, because in the 70s you could get away with stuff you cannot get away with today, and some of those with good reasons, you know. Cosmic Comics, you are so very right. Valley Girl completely, it encapsulated and then spread a specific you know, cultural subculture, you know,
locally.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, and thing is you could do an entire episode on, you know, fanzines from the 70s, you know, Star Trek fanzines, just, you know, all of that fan fiction. You could do a whole thing on that, but that's just me as a writer. You know. But yeah, our music, our nerddom, you know, is our geekdom, you know, because we geek out about these things, influences musicians who in turn influence us. It's a great big circle. It's great.
Well, wow, we have been going at this episode for quite a long time.
2.5 hours, man.
Yeah, I will say again, that's part of the reason why I have you on here, why I'm with Martin, and why I'm enjoying everyone that likes to enjoy this show. I try to turn it into not only an entertaining but a learning experience. That's always been what I've striven for. I hope to be able to accomplish at least 1/10 of what Dr. Demento has meant to his audience. And again, to tell Mr. Hansen, good on you, sir. You have earned your retirement. And from a grateful fan, thank you. Thank you for everything you did. You were very effective in helping me to become the geek that I am today.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, I gotta say, this has been hopefully a really, really good episode. I just want to say thank you to Gambit 1987, Read by Nature, Classic Comics, Mephisto, Real Popcorn Geek, Mr. Tom Baker, the lovely Anima, Andy Morrow, Snortopupus, and you know, to the lovely Penny, wherever you are, you were missed. And to everyone else, please please, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, especially this episode. If you know of anyone who just, grew up in the 1970s and they're a big fat fan of Star Trek and Star Wars, play this episode for them. Come on.
Yeah.
You're definitely not going to want to miss our next episode, which is going to start, Camp Keith, the 1980s.
Oh, 80s.
And, we're going to have some fun all month of July. Hopefully our sun will not continue to rebel and burn us, try to burn us out of existence before I'm done with the entire month. But, who knows? Anyway, on behalf of myself, Gary, Martin, and the incredible Ben, this has been Morning Coffee with Keith, the Camp Keith 1970s edition. Have yourself a very, very good day.
Hi, everybody.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Thank you.